Live Irish Myths. I'm Anthony Murphy of Mythical Ireland. This is episode number 142. Tonight we're talking about the deities of the Tuatha Dé Danann, picking up from where we left off last week when we were discussing the Dé Dananns on the basis or from P.W. Joyce's work. You're very welcome to the Mythical Ireland Library this evening. We are broadcasting simultaneously on the Mythical Ireland YouTube channel at youtube.com/Mythical Ireland. The Mythical Ireland Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Mythical Ireland. The Mythical Ireland community page on Facebook, which I'm not entirely sure it's actually facebook.com/groups/Mythical Ireland group. So there you go. Hope you're all keeping safe and well. This series, as you all know, began on March the 12th, 2020 at the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. We are still in that pandemic. We are trying to distract ourselves away from it. I hope that this has been a good means of doing so. Before we get to tonight's goodies in the form of the reading, I will have a few announcements. But first of all, I want to say welcome to the library. If it's your first time, we hope you enjoy yourselves. We hope you find that the community is a nice one, a gracious one, a welcoming one, a friendly one, and all of the things that you would associate with a traditional Irish gathering. We would encourage you, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, to the Mythical Ireland channel, to make sure you get notified of future live streams and videos, and make sure you ring the little bell. Give the video a like as well, because it helps the channel. If you're on Facebook, don't forget to subscribe. If you're on Mythical Ireland Facebook page, don't forget to go to the community and sign up there. First of tonight's commenters is Erica Rivertree. What a great pleasure. Hello, Erica. Erica is in Louisville, Kentucky, on Wiltuguma, Tame, Gohanawa. Gohintuk, Erica. Goramagat. Donna Jean Porter's in the house. Hello, Donna Jean, as is Joe Butler. Also good to see you, Joe. Hope you're keeping safe and well. Paula Snow Queen is here, giving the usual customary wave. Nothing that we wouldn't expect from a queen, of course. Speaking of which, we haven't seen HRH in a while. I'll have to have words. She must be busy. Oh, she has been busy. Whoops, let's not mention that. Deborah Williams is saying hello. Doing fine, Deborah. Hope you're well. Also, Barbara Barney is in the house, wants to say hello to everyone. Hello, Barbara. Angel Barboni Smith is here. Hello, Angel. Welcome along to our discussion. Barb Jordan. Keep saying it. Barb was there. Show number 1. Sue Prenter's in the house. Hello, Sue. Michael Kaiser. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. I do apologize, Michael, but you're very, very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Hope you enjoy yourself. Lillian Cruz is here. John Main is here. Sorry, I was trying to hide Lillian's comment first and then show John's. John, it's great to see you. And as always, you communicated with me today and I didn't respond, didn't I not? I had a tremendously busy day. I will talk to you more about that in a moment. Janet Moran says, Banachti o Boston go drohada. Well, if you wanted to say that in Irish, you could say go drechad aha. Iglan na boinye. But that's fine. And good afternoon to all the Bostonians in the house. Eva Anderson is here. So lovely to have some live Irish myths again. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I mean, if you're not, please do say so. Charlene McLean Cosby says, hi, finally made it here. What a pleasure it is to see you, Charlene. Good stuff. Robin Rickman says, hello from a cool Pennsylvania. Is that cool as in cool place to live? Of course it is. I've been in Pennsylvania. Are you in the good city of Philadelphia or anywhere in the environs? You know, it's so funny. My United States geography isn't good, but from sending out books in the post, I'm learning to search for the postcodes to see where everybody is, just to make sure I have the postcode right. And I didn't realize that, Philadelphia is basically on one side of the river, and on the other side, you're in the state of New Jersey. And it's like, if you ask, I would say in Ireland, in Europe, if you were to ask people, what state is the Empire State Building in, most people would say New York, and of course they'd be mistaken because it's in New Jersey. So there you are. Anyway, trivia. That doesn't make any difference to our storytelling. Nick Eska Casterton is in the house. Hello, Nick. Good to see you. Hope you're keeping well. Always a pleasure. Who else did I miss? Valerie Gallagher is there, as is our good friend Mandy McCurl. Thank you, Mandy, for all your help with the monograph. Leon Leach. Is it Leon or Leon? Leon Leach. Leach being the Irish for hero. Leon the hero says, hello, plant. Hello, indeed. Steve Martinson is in the house. Always a pleasure. Steve, good to see you. Hope you're well. And McCallum joins us. Hello, Anthony the Mighty Tuatha Dé Danann. Hope everyone's doing well. Well, I can't speak for everyone else, but I can speak for myself. Doing grand. Teresa Collins says, thumbs up. That's perfectly all right with me. Stacey Herman. I apologize. Coda also says hello. Yes. Okay, Coda, you got your hello in, but we're not showing your comment on the screen because you can't type. Hello, everyone. Ohio checking and making doggy treats while listening. Maybe that's why Coda suddenly barked, Stacey. It's like, I want one of those. Angel Hart is in the house. Hello, Angel. You're very welcome along. Desiree is in the house. All the pups are happy to be tuning in. Brilliant. My pup is ecstatic because he's been fed and he's been toileted. Saskia was in heat recently, and to say that we had a struggle keeping the two dogs apart, I'll tell you, there's a book to be written there. Facebook user whose identity is not showing, and I do apologize for that, that does happen sometimes, is in Laguna Beach in California. You're very welcome along. Amy Wallace Dolan's in the house. Hello, Amy. Hope you don't mind me putting your comments up. I mean, it's just a lovely thing to do. Marianne Uber says hello from Arizona. Hello, Marianne. You're very welcome along. Good evening from the Boyne Valley, from Drogheda to your part of the world. Bonjour, Antoine, says Tara. Bonjour. Good evening. And that's Nick, not Nick. That is Alex. Alex, you're very welcome. Haven't seen... Oh, have I? I'm not sure if I have, but you're welcome along. Good to see you. Tom King is in the house. Always mighty pleasure to see Tom in the house. Best part of the day, story time. Yeah, I hope you have the dram topped up, King Tom. Nora Gaffney O'Connor says, J'y arrive, Golaire, see a few degrees warmer. Summer's on the way. Brilliant stuff. House Martins are here too. Woohoo. Still buzzing after watching the Burren. Wow, wasn't it fabulous? Haven't seen any of the swallows yet in this part of the world, although I believe they are around the place, so hopefully that'll be sooner rather than later. Brendan Byrne is in the house. Good that you consider us your friends, Brendan, and you're always very welcome. Mariana Dunn is also here. Hello, Mariana. Welcome. Mel Turner is on the East Coast, Washington, D.C., not to be confused with Washington State on the West. You're very welcome, Mel. Hope you enjoy your time here. John Main, like Drogheda, Meath and Louth. Yes, indeed, although the Boyne is no longer the border in the town as it was when I was born. So, interesting times. Some of Meath has been reclaimed into Louth, or claimed into Louth. Davog Rin is in the house. Hello, Davog. How are you, Anthony? Greetings from the Beaujolais, a fine wine-producing region, Davog. I hope you're a wine fan, and that is one of the reasons you are over there, that you are participating in the occasional tasting of same. I'm jealous, but I'm close to Newgrange, so then I'm not jealous. Horse Whisperer. Hi, you never answered my email. I do apologise. So I just want to explain something that I do tend to be inundated with correspondence by email and by Facebook message, and believe it or not, even by snail mail. I work full-time. Mythical Ireland is not my full-time occupation, although it is the equivalent of another full-time job. If I fail to acknowledge receipt of an email or whatever, it's not because I'm being rude, it's just simply because I am very limited for time. So I do apologise for that. And maybe you might give me a nudge on the email and send it again or forward it on, and I'll have another look at it. Darren McCartney is checking in from Durra. Which of the many Durras? The only Durra, says you. Darren is in Derry, and you're very welcome along. Is it Rihanna? No, it's not. It's Raw Diana. I don't know how to pronounce that. Says, hello from Gory. Hello indeed to everybody in County Wicklow. Gory's in Wexford, isn't it? I did that to annoy you. It's like hello to all my friends in Dundalk. It's like, what? I'm from Drogheda. There's a big difference between Dundalk and Drogheda. Michelle Terrell is in the house from Colorado. Sorry, that wasn't what I was. Oh my God. Every time I click on one, something else appears. Michelle is in Colorado. Hello, Michelle. And Hayden Manus Brew, very nice surname, says, "Good day, hello to you. I could guess where you are. Is it a good morning? What about ye?" Says Davina in Belfast. Bale Thursday, good evening to you. Pardon me. The comments are scrolling so fast that I'm missing some of them. If I miss you, I do apologize. Please don't take it personally. Okay, and Paul Garron is messaging me. Paul, why aren't you watching live Irish Myths? Where do the regulars go to all the time? Who else? Neil Hughes, Trinonoa from Coatbridge, Scotland. Mary and Neil Cushtina with Fionn Jarrag August Ishke. Mary does not drink tea now. Is YouTube not on? Oh my God, it is. A lot of people are commenting on YouTube, so I hope it is on. Yes, there are plenty of comments coming in there. Yes, it is indeed on. It is definitely on. Wait till you hear this now. Yes, there are plenty of comments coming in there. Yes, it is indeed on. There you are. It is definitely. Thanks, Neil, and enjoy the Fionn Jarrag. I am jealous. Might have a glass of the Fionn myself later on. See what I did there. Arg Pod is in Argyll. Hello. A wave across the water to you there. If I hung out the window, you might even be able to see me. Snail Mail. I must remember that one, says Brendan. Facebook user from Dublin whose identity is not being shown to me. I do apologise. I'm sure you have a name. You're very welcome. It's great to see our friends in Ballia Achlia in the house. Jim Shine is in Indianapolis. Hello, Jim. Great to see you. I hope you enjoy the show. Michael Naylor, Mike and Jeanette are in New Jersey. Wonderful to see both of you. You're very welcome along. Tarini Pendleton is in Laguna Beach, California. I have you this time, Tarini. Welcome along. Sorka ni Kyoson, is it? Far from the Welsh mountains. What's Huil Far and how do you pronounce it? Good evening to you, Sorka. Trinonoa. Pull up a chair. Make yourself comfortable. Pour yourself a dram. Erica Bow is in the house. It is on. Hello, Erica. Indra Carol. That's a Carol, isn't it? There was a famous king of this area called Donnacha O'Carroll. He was the one who gave the Cistercians all their land when they arrived here in the 12th century. Indras tells us, poured myself a wee dram of Irish single malt right now. I am so insanely jealous. This is ridiculous. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. To your health. Katrina Lane says, Banachti O Chonavara. Conasatatu, Katrina. Fáilte Rot. Right, I'm going to leave the comments because I kind of need to get moving on because I have some announcements before we get to the juicies. The first one is a little bit of a sort of an off-the-cuff announcement. Just hang on till I just silence my phone. I noticed there it was making noise while we can't have it interrupting us. Definitely not. I wanted to say something. At this time of year, with the birds nesting, hedge cutting and tree felling is illegal in Ireland. It is illegal to trim or remove hedges or to fell trees from the 1st of March to the 31st of August, inclusive. If you see anyone doing so, report them immediately to your local Garda station or your National Parks and Wildlife Service representative, NPWS. The only occasion on which hedges can be cut during that period in Ireland under Irish legislation is on a main road where the hedge impinges upon visibility and safety. If you see anybody felling trees or trimming or felling hedgerows, even if you're doubtful as to whether there's a safety issue or not, ring the Gardaí and ring the NPWS. Even if the damage has already been done and they're finished their felling or their trimming, the NPWS are very good at securing convictions for such crimes. The reason I'm bringing that up is because I've been witness to several incidents in the past week I have been highlighting for years on my own personal Facebook profile the plight of bird populations in Ireland. Many birds are under serious threat. The populations have declined massively over the past 2 decades, in some cases by 80 to 90% in the space of a couple of decades. Species under threat here include, for instance, birds that you will see and hear in the Boyne Valley, include the yellowhammer and, for instance, the curlew. The destruction of their habitat during nesting season further exacerbates and speeds up that decline. So please, I'm asking you, if you see anybody cutting hedges or felling trees between the 1st of March and the 31st of August, ring the Gardaí and ring the NPWS. That's a plea from the heart, because it's just ridiculous the amount of people who do it and try to get away with it. Anyway, that's the serious stuff out of the way. I want to say a special thanks to Tom McGauley, who is the newest Mythical Ireland patron over at patreon.com/Mythical Ireland. Thank you, Tom, for your generous support. Please consider supporting the work of Mythical Ireland by becoming a patron and get rewarded for your patronage. And that is patreon.com, patreon.com/Mythical Ireland. Thank you very much to all the patrons who make a lot of this stuff happen. Monograph number 1 went to print since we were last. Well, I know I did a special quick live stream about it the other day, but monograph number 1 went to print after last week's live Irish Myths, the second of 2 new publications from Mythical Ireland. This one is about Finn and the Salmon of Knowledge. It costs €10 plus postage and packaging, and signed copies can be ordered on the Mythical Ireland website, and that's www.mythicalireland.com, or you can even access it via mythicalireland.ie. So when you get to Mythical Ireland, go to, along the top menu, or on your phone, the drop-down menu, go to Gallery and Shop, Book, My Books to see more. Order your signed copy now. And it is printed in colour on the inside. There aren't a huge amount of photographs, but there are enough. And that is the first in a planned series of monographs. Work has begun on the second in the series. Hope you enjoy them. The subject of that second monograph, by the way, has been revealed to Mythical Ireland patrons at the Bronze Age level and above in the past few days. So get yourself over to Patreon and sign up and find out. Return to Segish, the other publication, has been very well received so far. I am very glad to say. I want to read out again, just in case you haven't heard. I've had some very lovely reviews, but I want to single out Moncon McGann, our friend who was on the second of the Conversation series, who is a writer and broadcaster and very well known. Moncon read the book and describes it as a powerful piece of writing, a mix of lyrical prose with evocative insights, all threaded together into an alluring whole that makes one grasp complex ideas and sensibilities that would otherwise seem impossible to communicate. And when you take the dust jacket off, you see Sean Fitzgerald's artwork, our good friend, the artist, Sean Fitzgerald, whose work has graced numerous books, I'm glad to say, and it's easy to see why. Live Irish Myths in Conversation returns next Monday night at 9 p.m. So the regular series will be parked while we do the next in the Conversation series. It is my great pleasure to announce that my guest will be dendrochronologist Mike Bailey of Queen's University, who's going to tell us why tree rings are so important in helping us to discover more about the turbulent past. And indeed, that past is extremely turbulent. This will be a Zoom event. A registration link will be shared on the Mythical Ireland social media, that is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram sometime tomorrow morning. Be sure to register. You cannot participate if you don't register. Registration is free, and it's a free event. You're most welcome to attend. We also ask for voluntary donations by PayPal to cover the monthly cost of the series. And if you are willing to donate, even just €5 at paypal.me/Mythical Ireland. That's paypal.me/Mythical Ireland. We'd be immensely grateful. Last announcement is that wonderful programme that Nora mentioned on RTE about the Burren. The episode that was shown, what night? Was that last night or was it? It was last night, wasn't it? Was absolutely fantastic. Evidence of human activity in Ireland 33,000 years ago, and really fabulous stuff. Interestingly, the discussion about the people of the time having dark skin seemed to prompt an awful lot of racist anger on social media sites today. Unbelievable stuff. In this day and age, we still have idiots who prefer to beat the white supremacist drum instead of listening to the damn scientists. But anyway, there you go. That's all I've got to say about that. That's all I have to say about that. As Forrest Gump once said, what time are we on? Okay, so 21 minutes in, we better get talking about the main topic of discussion tonight, which are plural. The topics are the deities of the Tuatha Dé Danann. We're continuing to read from P.W. Joyce's A Social History of Ancient Ireland. Last week, we left off where we were talking about Manannán and the Dagda, and about the confusion sometimes about which of those is the most supreme of the deities. That's usually reserved for the Dagda, but sometimes it transfers to Manannán. So, for instance, at Brunabónia, Dagda is the owner and builder of Newgrange in some of the myths. But in Altran Chia Gawather, the main proponent who's trying to oust or to get Angus to oust Elkmar from Newgrange is Manannán. So tonight we're going to continue. Now I'm going to just repeat a little bit of what we finished with last week. We're going to do both Jarrag and Angus Og. So yes, I'm just making sure that I haven't missed any. Really, every comment is important, obviously. Yeah. What's very sad about the Mythical Ireland page and the community is that it should be really obvious from hanging around there that we don't tolerate racism, and that while we talk about mythology and spirituality and such things as synchronicity, and it's not, we're not strictly adhering to science all the time. We do respect the scientists and what they say. And so if a scientist tells us that there was human activity in 33,000 years ago, we've good reason to believe them. These are the foremost scientists in their fields. If they tell us that DNA shows that our precursors had certain traits, then why would we not believe them, except for if it triggers some sort of, usually in fairness, most of the fragile comments were from white males. Not all of them. There were some females, but most of the people who were triggered by the article seemed to be male. But anyway, just a reminder that if you're on Mythical Ireland and you're expecting us to wave the nationalist flag all the time, and it should be really, really obvious from reading anything I've written and from watching these broadcasts and live streams that the idea of some stupidly concocted, fatuous idea that there's such thing as a pure Irish race is nonsensical. It's ridiculous. If you trace any of our lineages properly, if you were able to, you would probably find somewhere in there huge mixtures from different parts, mostly of Europe in fairness, but maybe even from further afield. Anyway, let's leave that at that and say no more. No doubt afterwards, when this video is on YouTube, there'll be people commenting, making angry comments. Save your angry comment for someone else who wants to hear it, because I don't want to hear it. If you've come here to be racist, then get out of here. I don't want you. Now, there you go. Bov Jarrag, son of the Dagda, had his residence called Shebuv on the shore of Loch Derg, or in Irish, Loch Gerrig, somewhere near Portumna. Several hills in Ireland, noted as F-word haunts. For the newcomers, F-words we can't say because it tends to bugger up the technology, took their names from him and others from his daughter Boo. Angus Machinogue, another son of the Dagda. I can't believe that there's so little about Angus here. Was a mighty magician. In the wooing of Emer, he is called a god, whose splendid palace at Brew of the Boyne was within the great sepulchral mound of Newgrange, near Drogheda, 4.1 miles that way as the crow flies. And please don't fly through my bookcase on your way out, because there's so much more we could say about Angus. We could talk about two stories in particular. We could talk about we could talk about more than two stories, but Tuchmark Etain and his fosterage by Midger, his parentage by the illicit union of Dagda and Bowen, his miraculous birth, the sun standing still, 9 months being compressed into one day, all that stuff. We could talk about Aislinge Aengusoge, the dream vision of Aengusoge, and his love affair with Care, who's the shapeshifter who takes the form of a swan. His eventual deposing of either and or Elkmar or his father, the Dagda from Newgrange, through trickery. There's so much that could be said. It's very disappointing that Joyce should leave Angus to just one paragraph. Bridget, I'm delighted to see her inclusion so early in the list. Bridget, daughter of the Dagda, was the goddess of poetry and wisdom. This, says Cormac in his glossary, is Bridget the female sage or woman of wisdom. That is, Bridget the goddess, whom poets adored because her protecting care over them was very great and very famous. Cormac fancifully interprets her name as meaning fiery arrow, in Irish, bro haiget, Shaiget. And I've seen some discussion on the Mythical Ireland community about the fact that Sagitt is based on, is it Greek or Latin, Sagitta for the arrow? Is that Greek or Latin? I'm not sure which. And that it is obviously a later form. It is not perhaps the original name or word for arrow. She had two sisters, also called Bridget. One was the goddess of medicine and medical doctors. The other, the goddess of smiths and smithwork. There you go, Tom. You know who to ask for help when your hammer is broken and you need a miracle fix. The first recorded Christian who bore this old pagan name was the great St. Bridget of Kildare, and through veneration for her, it has been perpetuated in Christian Ireland for 1400 years as a favourite name for women. It's a funny thing that, given all of the things that have gone on in the church over the past generation, in my lifetime, basically, when I was a young boy, processions were still a regular thing. Everybody went to Mass. A lot of people still went to Mass every day. The churches were packed all the time. We were a very Catholic nation. In the space of that short lifetime, I still like to describe myself as a young fella. It's been incredible, the amount of change. Well, one of the things that has changed with that movement away from the church in Ireland is the movement away from religious names. So, for instance, Mary and Bridget for girls, and say particularly say Patrick, Joseph, etc., are much less common for boys now, I think, than they were before. Dian Kecht is the next one. The mighty physician and god of medicine, and his three brothers, Goivnu or Goivnian the smith. And this is very interesting. I found this fascinating. Whose wife is interred under the great mound beside Drogheda, now called the Mill Mount. I think that's fascinating. Crejne, the cairge or brazier, and Luchtene, the sayer or carpenter, will be found noticed elsewhere in this book. So he doesn't actually really say anything about Dian Cecht other than to tell us that Dian Cecht is the physician, and of course he is the one who is able to heal the warriors who have been wounded in the Second Battle of Moytura. He's also the one that effects a cure, in a sense, for Nuadu, whose arm has been chopped off in the First Battle of Moytura. But it is, in fact, Dian Cecht's son, Meach, who transforms Nuadu's silver arm into a fleshy, natural, sort of human arm. And his three brothers, Goinu or Govnu, the smith, it has been mentioned in folklore locally here that the Gubán Sayre's wife is buried at Millmount, but Gubán Sayre is like the medieval continuation, as it were, the medieval successor of the original deity known as Govnu. But it says here that the smith's wife is interred under the great mound of Millmount in Drogheda. And that's one I share pictures of quite regularly. You'll know it because it has the Martello Tower up on top of it, spectacularly illuminated. But the mound upon which it sits is said, in local folklore anyway, to be the burial place of Amergin, of the Milesians, and also, as I said, Govnu's wife, whose name may be something like Rushach, which it would appear to relate to something to do with redness or ruddiness, a reddish or ruddy colour, which I find fascinating. Anyway, I'm on that trail. I've been on it for years, hunting around for more information. Creidhne the Brazier and Luchtine the Sayre or Carpenter. These are basically three brothers who are very good with their hands. Let's call them the Tuatha Dé Danann handymen. You want a job done in your house, they're the lads to call. Boanan and Anna, two beneficent Dé Danann goddesses, are mentioned in Cormac's glossary. That first one is Buanann, Boanan, and Anna, Ana. They're mentioned in Sanas Cormac, which we, I think, regularly have mentioned on our live streams. Cormac's glossary, dating from the late 10th century, or perhaps the early 11th. No, he died, didn't he, in the late 900s, late 10th century, which is basically a dictionary of Irish words Irish words and proper names from what's it called? From a millennia ago. Very interesting. So Cormac's glossary says that they resemble each other in their functions. Boanan, that's B-U-A-N, and he puts a hyphen in here. B-U-A-N-A-N-N means good mother. So called because she was the Aun, A-N-N, or mother to the heroes, reared them and taught them feats of arms. And again, that's from Cormac's glossary. That's actually one that I must come back to myself, because I'm interested in it. A lot of people have asked over the years, do we know much about Danu or Anna or Anu, this mother of the deities? And unfortunately, there's so little written or said about them that usually there's a paucity of information, unfortunately, considering their importance. Anna, also called Danu or Danann, gave name to the Tuatha Dé Danann tribes of the goddess Danu. Again, so they're alternative forms, Anna and Danu. Danann, I would maintain, is the genitive form of Danu, but perhaps I'm mistaken. She was the mother of the gods of the Irish. And again, that's mentioned in Cormac's glossary. That is to say, of the three gods of Danu, three Deo Danann, Brian, Iocharva, and Iocchar, whose father was Bres mac Elathan, who were killed by Lu in Mana. And she suckled and nursed these three so well that her name Anna came to signify plenty. Anna meaning wealth or treasure. And apparently that's in the martyrology of O'Gorman. There you go. Paula Snow Queen says, go find out, Anthony, and come back and tell us. Absolutely. Consider it done. I've lost my place now because I was getting giddy. The Cor Ovnon, the Cor Onvon adds that she was worshipped in Munster as the goddess of plenty, and the name and nutritive function of this goddess are prominently commemorated in Dá Chiach Danann, the two paps of Danann, a name given to two beautiful adjacent conical mountains near Killarney, which to this day are known by the name of the paps of Danu, the breasts of Danu, which are seen to rise up out of the landscape. They both have, pardon the turn of phrase, they both have nipples on the top of them in the form of ancient cairns, which is fascinating. Did I share some aerial photographs of those in the past week on Mythical Ireland? I know I saw them on Facebook. I'm just not 100% sure that I shared them. I try to share that stuff as much as possible. Jez Hunt says in Wales it's the children of Dun. Davog has a poem about Danu. I'll post it on the community page. Brilliant stuff. But there were other fairy chiefs besides those of the Dé Dananns, and some renowned shees. I just said it. Ignore it. Just pretend you didn't hear it. Renowned shees belonging to Milesian princes who became deified in imitation of their F-word predecessors. For instance, the she of Éarua at Ballyshannon, County Donegal. Our ancient books relate that this Éarua, or Red Hugh, a Milesian chief, the father of Macha, founder of Awan, was drowned in the cataract at Ballyshannon for cataract reed rapids, or those mini cascading waterfalls that you see in a river, which was thence called after him Éarua. Éarua's waterfall, now shortened to Asaro. He was buried over the cataract in the mound, which was called from him Shi Éda, a name partly preserved in Mulla Shi, often called Mullina Shi, both names meaning the hill or the Shi, or the hill of the Shi, or F-word palace. I should say something about Éarua and Asaro, that he gets a mention in monograph number 1, the aforementioned, and that is because there is a relationship there with the one-eyed. Let me just. Oh, do you know what? The one thing that the monograph lacks is an index, but it's so short. In fairness, it's 70 pages. It doesn't really need an index, does it? Say no. No, it doesn't. It's grand. But can I find? Yeah, there we go. O'Rahilly, I'll just read this to you very briefly, not to bore you, just to give you a sample of what's in the monograph. O'Rahilly makes a stronger connection between Dagda and the salmon. The omniscient deity in fish form was also known as the O fish. And that is fish doesn't mean salmon. O means salmon, E-O fada. Fish means wisdom, the salmon of wisdom. The salmon of Esrua, Rua's waterfall, i.e. the falls of Asaro on the Erne at Ballyshannon, County Donegal, was known as Gull Essa Rua, the blind one of Asaro. Because it was one-eyed, the salmon, as might be expected, is identified with the all-knowing Fintan. We're talking there about Fintan MacBocra in order to escape the great flood, transformed into a one-eyed salmon at Tultinge, and Fintan is a name often given to the salmon of knowledge. In a masterful piece of scholarship, O'Rahilly tells us the following in relation to Dagda. Elsewhere we read of a mythical Éarua who was drowned in the waterfall at Ballyshannon, which from him was called Esrua, and who left his name also on the adjacent Shi or otherworld hill known as Shi Éda. Here we have the god A who presided over the Shi, identified with the Rua who was drowned in, i.e., who, in pagan belief, lived beneath the neighbouring waterfall. Another text gives Eid Allen of Esrua as one of the names of the Dagda, who was also known as In Rua Roasa and Yochi Olahar. And for more, you will have to get your own copy at mythicalireland.com. Signed, of course, all books that depart around the world from the Mythical Ireland Library are signed by the author. Carry on. Hope you're all having fun. Hope you're all having fun, even if it is at my expense sometimes. That's all right. Where were we? We were talking about Boanan and Anna and the Paps of Anu. Oh, we weren't. We were talking about Esrua. This hill has recently been found to contain subterranean chambers. Of course, this volume, Joyce is writing in the early 1900s, more than a century ago. This hill has recently been found to contain subterranean chambers, which confirms our ancient legendary accounts and shows that it is a great sepulchral mound like those on the Boyne. How few of the people of Ballyshannon know that the familiar name Mulla Shee is a living memorial of those dim ages when Éorua held sway, and that the great king himself has slept here in his dome-roofed dwelling for 2,000 years. Yes, Anne McCallum says it's interesting that Christ is often symbolised as a fish. I am a fisher of men. Don't mention also the miracle of the loaves and fishes. Another brief, at the end of the monograph, I have a little section called Miscellanea, which relates to tales that are related but not related, as it were. One of those is again from Altron Chiagavather. We did 2 episodes about that in our Live Irish Myths series. And in the second part of that, Ethna is kind of taken away from the Tuatha Dé Danann and basically Christianized, isn't she? But while she's down by the river, she sees a preacher praying, or not a preacher, a cleric. And he sort of takes her under his wing. But one of the things that he does is he fishes a salmon from the Boyne, and he's eating his supper, gobbling away at the salmon. And he leaves poor Ethna there sitting open-mouthed, drooling, watching him eating the fish. And he says, "What's wrong?" And she says, "There's nothing for me." He said, "Oh, there's only enough here for me." And he said, "Look, hang on a second." The guilt got the better of him. He said, "Hang on a second. I'm going to go back to the Boyne and I'll get you a fish." And what happened was, he fished her the most remarkable salmon. That's how the story describes it. And I just thought that was interesting, that he's basically initiating Ethne into the religion of Christianity in much the same way as Finnegas, the wise druid who was fishing for the salmon of knowledge for 7 years, helped to initiate the young boy Jevna, who later becomes Finn after he eats the salmon, again by the shore of the Boyne. That's an initiatory story, rites of passage, where the innocent boy is suddenly imbued with these miraculous skills of insight and poetic abilities. Another Milesian chief, Dun or Down, if you depends on your pronunciation and what part of the country you're in. Brendan Byrne says, "Yeah, I have to show that. That's a funny comment, Brendan. Glad to see Anthony is watching his P's and Q's, but especially his F's. You'll hear no F words being mentioned on here, I'll tell you that for nothing, unless it's by accident, and that does happen, for fuck's sake." See what I did there? Another Milesian chief, Dun, son of Malicious, was drowned in the magic storm raised by the spells of the Dé Dananns when the 8 brothers came to invade Ireland. Interestingly, in that regard, is the fact that Down or Dun. Sorry, I apologise, Fiona. I didn't mean to put your. Well, I'm not. I hope that's not embarrassing. Down or Dun before the Milesians was actually a god of the underworld, apparently. But fascinating, and I talk about this actually in Return to Segish, of all books, which is ostensibly a work of fiction, but it's mytho-poetic and based fundamentally upon the myths of the Boyne Valley region. That Dun was the one beating the war drum, saying, "Come on, let's go and get those Dé Danann effers." And Amergin was the one who, in poetic and druidic terms, met the tutelary or guardian goddesses and allowed them their petition, which was, "You name the country after us, we'll allow you to stay here." And so he wasn't interested in war, he was interested in negotiation as the poet and the druid and the spiritual figurehead. Dun drowns. Amergin is the one who calms the storm, according to Laura Gawala Aaron, the Book of Invasions. Amergin calms the storm. Dun falls overboard because he's killed in the storm. Because he thought, he had this idea that the Dé Dananns could be defeated militarily, when in fact the Dé Dananns could only be defeated on their own terms. In other words, long has your arrival been seen by the soothsayers, is what Eru, the goddess, told Amergin at Ishnok. In other words, we knew that you were coming, and the nature of his arrival was important to the nature or the degree of his success. Sue Prenter, Anthony, I just told my brother you don't use the F word. There's a Saint Feck, you know. Well, we have a village close to Drogheda called Terman Feckin, and it means the little church of Saint Feckin. And wasn't Saint Feckin associated with Fore Abbey in Westmeath, the Seven Wonders of Fore? It's so funny, Feckin, yeah, Saint Feckin, yeah. It's funny because when we were kids and we used to be going to Clogherhead or Terman Feckin Beach, and my dad would drive us, and we would see the signs for Terman Feckin, and we'd start, you know, Terman Feckin. It sounds like Terman, you know, as in we knew Feckin was a bold word, but a little bit more acceptable than the version with you in it, if you understand. So a child couldn't say the F word really, but could get away with the FECK word, you know. But for him, it was only changing an earthly mode of existence for a much pleasanter one in his airy palace at the top of Knockfearne, as a renowned king of the F-words. And here he ruled over all the great Limerick plain around the mountain, where many legends of him still linger among the peasantry. A male F-word was a fur she, literally, a fur, a man from the she. A female F-word, a ben-she or a ban-she, i.e. a woman from the F-word hills. Several F-word hills were ruled by banshees as F-word queens. The banshee, who also presided as queen of the palace on the summit of Knockany Hill, that's Knockanya in County Limerick, was Anya, daughter of the Dé Danann chief Oghaval, who gave her name to the hill and to the existing village of Knockany. Knock simply being an Irish word, Knock, C-N-O-C, for hill, and Any just being an anglicisation of Anya for the hill of Anya. Bethany Cutler says, hello! And hello right back to you. So we do have funny names in Ireland. Sorcha is reminding us that there's a certain beach which is her favourite swimming spot, Bastardstown Beach. Yes, indeed. I think it would be too bold, far too bold, to mention Muff in County Cavan. And so we won't. This was the F-word lady who, in a personal struggle with Ailill, king of Munster in the 2nd century, cut his ear clean off, whence he was, and is known as Ailill Olav, i.e. Ailill bare ear. Ailill Olam. Is it Olam or Olav? Is the M lenited at the end of the word? Somebody help me with my Middle Irish, with my early Irish. Two other banshees, still more renowned, were Cleana of Carrig Cleana and Avon or Avel of Craglia. Cleana is the potent banshee that rules as queen over the F-words of South Munster. In the Dunshanachas, there is an ancient and pathetic story about her, wherein it is related that she was a foreigner from F-word land, who, coming to Ireland, was drowned while sleeping on the strand at the harbour of Glandore in South Cork, in the absence of her husband. In this harbour, the sea at certain times utters a very peculiar, deep, hollow, and melancholy roar among the caverns of the cliffs, which was formerly believed to foretell the death of a king of the south of Ireland, and which Dean Swift has described in his Latin poem Carberry Rupes, Carberry being the name of the district. This surge has been from time immemorial called Tun Cleana, Cleana's wave. We had that before, didn't we? Can't remember which episode we discussed it in, but we definitely did have it before. Cleana lived on, however, as an F word. She had her palace in the heart of a pile of rocks 5 miles from Mallow, which is still well known by the name of Carrig Cleana. And of course, Carrig is the Irish word for rocks. And numerous legends about her are told among the Munster peasantry. Avon or Avel, even or evil, sorry, he's pronouncing it, the anglicisation, a bit different than I am. But anyway, it'll differ in different parts of the country anyway. Whose name signifies beautiful, presided over North Munster and was, in an especial manner, the guardian spirit of the Dalcassians or O'Briens. She had her palace 2 miles north of Killaloe in a rock called Crogevil, but better known by the name of Croglea Grey Rock. Croglea Grey Rock. Who is it that is in Ballina, Killaloe? Is that the same place? It is on opposite sides of the Shannon. Alan Hoskins, are you here? Hello, Alan. The fuckle galore. Sure, look who's in the house. It's only the Bowel Tracy getting a night off. A couple of Mondays off from the conversation series. I hope you're enjoying your break. We're back next week. We're just discussing that earlier. I know, you can't wait. The rock is situated in a silent glen under the face of a mountain, and the people affirm that she forsook her retreat when the woods, which once covered the place, were cut down. There you go. There's the trees getting cut down again. We were talking about that earlier. We see anybody cutting down trees between the 1st of March and the 31st of August, report them to the Gardaí or the National Parks and Wildlife Service. There is a spring in the face of the mountain, still called Tubber Evil. It sounds funny, evil. It's not the well of evil. It's Abel's or Evil's well. Tubber, Tipper. The part she played in the Battle of Clontarf is briefly referred to at page 246 supra before, but it is related in full in my short history of Ireland, pages 219 and 223 to 224. That is, of course, B.W. Joyce's short history of Ireland. Yes, Tracy has the feet up and is sitting back with a dram in her hand, laughing at having the time off and being, you think you'd have a night off from it completely and not tune in, but sure, we all know you're dedicated to the old fort under which the Banshee Grian of the Bright Cheeks had her dwelling still remains on the top of Palace Grian Hill in the county Limerick. Joan McHugh is in the house. Hello, Joan. Fáilte, hope you're keeping well. One of the most noted of the F-word palaces, nearly said it, is on the top of Slieve na Mon in County Tipperary. You know what that means? Slieve na Mon? It means the mountain of the women. But to enumerate all the F-word hills of Ireland and relate fully the history of their presiding gods and goddesses and the superstitious beliefs among the people regarding them would occupy a good-sized volume. You're not wrong there, Patrick Weston Joyce. In modern times, the word banshee has become narrowed in its meaning and signifies a female spirit that attends certain families and is heard keening or crying at night round the house when some member is about to die. At the present day, almost all raths, cashels and mounds, the dwellings, forts and sepulchres of the Furvulugs and the Milesians, as well as those of the Dé Dananns, are considered as F-word haunts. She's open at Samhain. Perhaps a discussion for later in the year. It's not dark here yet. What time is it? It's nearly 9 o'clock at night. Thankfully, spring is blossoming into summer here in Ireland. On Samhain Eve, the night before the 1st of November, or as it is now called, All Hallows Night or Halloween, all the F-word hills were thrown wide open and the Fé Fiada was taken off. That is the cloak of invisibility, gifted apparently to the Dé Dananns by Manannán. The Shees of Erin were always open at Samhain, says the ancient tale of the boyish exploits of Finn, Magnivarha Find, which is mentioned again repeatedly in the aforementioned monograph on Finn and the Salmon of Knowledge. Get your copy, €10 for a signed copy on mythicalireland.com. You know you have to do it. Anyway, sorry, that they were open at Samhain according to the boyish exploits of Finn. For on the eve of that day, it was impossible to keep them in concealment. And we read in the story of Echtra Nere, they, the F-word host, will come on Samhain next from the Shees of Erin, for the Shees of Erin are always open at Samhain. While the Shees remained open that night, any mortals who were bold enough to venture near might get a peep into them. Quote, on one Samhain night, i.e. Samhain Eve, Finn was near two Shees, and he saw both of them open after the Fé Fiada had been taken off them. And he saw a great fire in each of the duns and heard persons talking in them. Unquote. No sooner was the Fé Fiada taken off and the doors thrown open than the inmates issued forth and roamed where they pleased all over the country, so that, as we are told in the story of Echtra Nere, people usually kept within doors, naturally enough, afraid to go forth, for demons would always appear on that night, quote unquote. Echtra Nere is the adventures of Nera. If you're interested in pursuing that, you can read that in Revue Celtique, volume number 10. It's probably 1889. Kuno Meyer, The Adventures of Nera. Anyway, I get much distracted. I do apologise. Sorry. From the cave of Croghan in Connacht issued probably the most terrific of all those spectre hosts. For immediately that darkness had closed in on Samhain Eve, a crowd of horrible goblins rushed out. I don't know where they get these words from at all, goblins. And among them a flock of copper-red birds, led by one monstrous three-headed vulture. Is this Stephen King that wrote this? No, it's P.W. Joyce. And their poisonous breath withered up everything it touched, so that this cave came to be called the Hell Gate of Ireland. That same Hellgate cave is there still, but the demons are all gone. Scared away, no doubt, by the voices of the Christian bells. The superstition that the F-words are abroad on Samhain night exists at present day, both in Ireland and in Scotland, and of course that continues. COVID notwithstanding the annual lighting of the bonfires, one thing that does happen all around the country of Ireland is the Halloween bonfires. In Britain, postponed a little bit into early November for Guy Fawkes. There are other bonfire days which are still celebrated in Ireland. Bealtaine in remote parts, and St. John's Eve, Midsummers, again in certain parts of the country. F-words, sometimes banshees or females, sometimes fur-shees or males, often kept company with mortals and became greatly attached to them. Every Samhain, a banshee used to visit Fingon Macluchta, king of South Munster, in the 2nd century, and bring him on a round of visits to the Shees to see all the precious things therein. A banshee follower of a mortal was usually called a Lennon she, an F-word lover, and instances of such attachments are innumerable. Fiachna, king of Ulster, had a familiar fur she, or F-word man, who used to tell him future events. That include next Saturday night's winning lottery numbers. Oh, yes. And we move on to Annan or Anna, not the beneficent Anna, because we're talking here about Bov, or, Anna, Bov or Bav, and Macha, 3 weird sisters, is how it's described here, were war goddesses or battle furies, all malignant beings. They delighted in battle and slaughter. Hang on till I just check what time we're on. We're not too bad. I mean, there was 21 minutes of announcements, so we've only been going for about 38 minutes. We'll go on for a bit more. Just checking the comments to see if I've missed anything. Rowan Grove, you'll have to tell us more. Interesting things. What were these interesting things that occurred when you played your harp? Maybe you don't want to share that, and that's okay. Irish Technical Thinker is in the house. Tiernan Og, yeah. In Titanic, yes, indeed. Heart-rending stuff. Okay, I don't think I'm just going to check the Mythical Ireland community because I know sometimes the comments from there don't appear on here. So just bear with me one moment. Anyway, glad to see that so many of you have stuck around despite the poor humour. Let me see. I apologise. Am I broadcasting? Am I live streaming on the Mythical Ireland community? This is one of the questions that we must ask. I don't see it. Maybe it's fell down the list because nobody's watching. Oh, there it is. Alan Taff is in Lyon, says bonjour. Bonjour, Alan. And Marianne Thomas Ibarra says, oh, YouTube is up, going to switch over and watch and listen on the big TV. Caitlin Moon is in Dublin. And I do apologise for not seeing your comments earlier. That's my bad. But hope you're all... It's good to see you anyway. And I hope you're all comfortable. In an ancient glossary quoted by Stokes, that's in 3 Irish glossaries, which I do have on my bookshelf, Macha's masked food is said to be from the heads of men slain in battle. The old accounts of them are somewhat confused, but it appears that the terms Morrigan and Bow, B-A-D-B, would I've heard it pronounced in modern times as Bow, Bov, and something like Bove, but I'll call her Bove just for the Bove is the anglicisation of it. Morrigan and Bove were applied to all. Morrigan, or Morrigu, as it is often written, means great queen, and that's from Morrigan, the big or great female deity, or female regal, female royal. Means great queen from more great and Rion. Yes, of course, the G is lenited, so it should be Rion, not Regon. Rion, a queen. But Bov is the name oftenest applied to a war fury. The Bov often showed herself in battle in the form of a Fenog, i.e. a Skál crow, or Royston crow, or Carrion crow, fluttering over the heads of the combatants. The word which is now pronounced, it's B-I-B-E, again I don't know whether that's bibe or bive, is still in use as applied to the bird. Sometimes it is still used as a reproachful name for a scolding woman, a good illustration of the commemoration of ancient beliefs in modern everyday speech. This bird is regarded by the peasantry all through Ireland and to some extent in Scotland and Wales with feelings of dread and dislike, of a dim popular memory of the terrible part it played in the battles of the olden time. The Bove or Morrigan, sometimes as a bird and sometimes as a loathsome-looking hag, figures in all the ancient battles, down even to the Battle of Clontarf in 1014 AD. In the midst of the din and horror, she was often seen busily flitting about through the battle cloud overhead, and sometimes she appeared before battle in anticipation of slaughter. AED, every time I see that, it throws me off. Like it's because it's lenited again, it's just A. But I always want to pronounce it aid, you know? Aid, or A. Aid, I'm going to put the D on it because I just can't do it. Aid, king of Oriel in the 6th century, had a shield called Dov Gila, the Black Fellow. Quote, it was the feeder of ravens, and the Bove perched on its rim during battle and shrieked, unquote. Just before the Battle of Moirath in AD 637, the grey-haired Morrigan, in the form of a lean, nimble hag, was seen hovering and hopping about on the points of the spears and shields of the royal army, who were victorious in the great battle that followed. In the account of the slaughter of the nobles by the plebeian races in the 2nd century AD, given in the Book of Fermoy, we read that, after the massacre, quote, Gory Bov was joyful and women were sorrowful for that event, unquote. Just before the destruction of Bruin da Choca, the Bov showed herself as a big-mouthed, swarthy, swift, sooty woman, lame and squinting with her left eye. There you go, unquote. The Bov was a war goddess among the ancient Gaulish nations of the continent, from whom, of course, as in many other cases, her legend was brought to Ireland by the Celtic emigrants. Some years ago, a small pillar stone about 30 inches high was found in France with an interesting votive inscription to this goddess under the name of Cahubovde, of which only uh, Ahubovde, Ahubodve, sorry, I'm pronouncing it wrong, but again, I'm not familiar with it, now remains, the C having disappeared with a corner of the stone that was broken off. Compounded of Cahu, Irish, Cath, for battle, and Bodve, the Irish bov. Though this goddess figures in the ancient literature of the Celtic nations in general, including the Welsh, there are fuller and more frequent accounts of her in Irish writings than in all the others put together. Nitch, N-E-I-T, says Cormac's Glossary, page 122, if you have it handy, was, quote, was the god of battle with the pagans of the Gael. Nevon, Nemon, was his wife. In another part of the glossary, it is stated that Nevon was otherwise called Bay Nech, as in the woman of Nech, or the wife of Nech, and that she was above. And in O'Cleary's glossary, she is called Bov of Battle, or a Fenog. But as being Nech's wife, she was probably the chief Bov or war goddess of all. Nech and Nevon were malignant beings. Both are bad. A venomous couple, this is in quotes, truly were they, says Cormac. And hence is said, as a maledictive wish among the Irish, be Nech attend on thee, unquote. The Bovs were not the only war goblins. There was a class of phantoms that sometimes appeared before battles, bent on mischief. Before the Battle of Moylena in the 2nd century, 3 repulsive-looking witch hags with blue beards appeared before the armies, hoarsely shrieking victory for Conn, the 100 fighter, Conn Céad Cathach, and defeat and death for the rival king Owen. And that's interesting because we stumbled upon Conn Céad Cathach in our episode not too long ago about Arnya Fingon, Fingon's Night Watch, and the miraculous events that were happening in concurrence with his birth at Tara. We read of malignant beings of this kind in connection with Christianity also. At the Battle of Mucriva in AD 250, the air over the heads of the combatants was black with demons waiting to snap up and carry off the souls of sinners. Interesting. Excuse me. That's AD 250. That's pre-Christianity in Ireland. While only 2 angels attended to bear away in the other direction the few souls they could claim. Just before the banquet of Dunmungay Moirath, 2 horrible black spectral beings, a man and a woman, both belonging to hell. It's like if they're pre-Christian figures, there's no such thing as hell, came to the assembly and, having devoured an enormous quantity of food, cursed the banquet, after which they rushed out and vanished. But they left their baleful trail, for at that feast there arose a deadly quarrel which led to the Battle of Moirath. Even so late as the 14th century, some of the historical tales record apparitions of this kind, but this may possibly be nothing more than an imitation of the older tales. In Macrae's account of the wars of Thomond, we read that when the clan Brian Rowe were marching to their destruction at the impending Battle of Doolin in County Clare in AD 1317. Sorry, I just realised I wasn't keeping an eye on the comments. They saw in the middle of a ford a hideous-looking gigantic hag, quote, with grey, dishevelled hair, blood-draggled, and with sharp-boned arms, and fingers crooked and spare, dabbling and washing in the ford, where mid-leg deep she stood, beside a heap of heads and limbs that swam in oozing blood. Not a good omen to see when you're marching into battle, one might say. And when they asked who she was, she told them in a loud, croaking voice that she was the washer of the ford, and that the bloody human remains she was washing were their own heads and limbs, which should be lopped off and mingled in the coming battle, on which she vanished before the terrified eyes of the soldiers. In many remote, lonely glens there dwelt certain fierce apparitions, females, called Genichi Glunny, the genii or sprites of the valley, and others called Bochanachs, male goblins, and Bananachs, females, often in company with Jevna air or demons of the air. At any terrible battle crisis, many or all of these, with the other war furies described above, were heard shrieking and howling with delight, some in the midst of the carnage, some far off in their lonely haunts. Just before one of Cuchulain's fierce onslaughts, the Bochanachs and the Bananachs and the Geniti Glini and the demons of the air responded to his shout of defiance, and the Nevan, i.e. the Bov, confounded the army of Maeve, Cuchulain's enemy, so that the men dashed themselves against the points of each other's spears and weapons, and 100 warriors dropped dead with terror. There you go, there's an easy battle. Just terrify them, they'll drop dead before they even raise a spear or a sword. In the story of the Feast of Brickrew, we are told how the three great Red Branch champions, Lera the victorious, Connell, Cernach, and Cuchulainn, contended one time for the Coromir, the champion's bit, which was always awarded to the bravest and mightiest hero. And in order to determine this matter, they were subject to various severe tests. On one of these occasions, the stern-minded old chief Samera, who acted Samera, that I'm pronouncing that wrong. That sounds Samera. That sounds foreign in some way. Samara, the samurai, who acted as judge for the occasion, decided that the three heroes separately should attack a colony of Geniti Glini that had their abode in a neighbouring valley. Lera went first, but they instantly fell on him with such demoniac ferocity that he was glad to escape half naked, leaving them his arms and battle dress. Colonel Cernach was next, and he too soon had to run for it, but he fared somewhat better, for though leaving his spear, he bore away his sword. Lastly, Cuchulainn, and they filled his ears with their hoarse shrieks, and falling on him tooth and nail, they broke his shield and spear, and tore his clothes to tatters. At last he could bear it no longer, and showed plain signs of yielding. His faithful charioteer Laeg was looking on. Now one of Laeg's duties was, whenever he saw his master about yielding in a fight, to shower reproaches on him, so as to enrage him the more. On this occasion, he reviled him so vehemently and bitterly for his weakness, and poured out such contemptuous nicknames on him, that the hero became infuriated, and, turning on the goblins once more, sword in hand, he crushed and hacked them to pieces, so that the valley ran all red with their blood. The classes of F-words called Shiavra, who were also Dé Dananns, a sort of disreputable poor relations of Manannán and the Dagda, were powerful, demoniac, and dangerous elves. They are mentioned in our earliest literature, in the 8th or 10th century story of the Shiavar chariot of Cuchulainn in the Book of the Dun Cow. St. Patrick tells us St. Patrick tells King Lear that the apparition he sees is not a Shivra, but Cuchulainn himself. To this day, the name is quite familiar among the people, even those who speak only English, and they often call a crabbed little boy, small for his age, a little Shivra, exactly as Concobar or Croher MacNessa 19 centuries ago. When he was displeased with the boy, Cuchulainn calls him Sirahe Shivarhi, a little imp of a Shivra. The Shivras were often incited by druids and others to do mischief to mortals, and again, we're about to see something that is encountered in monograph number 1 about Finn and the Salmon of Knowledge in relation to the death of Cormac MacArt at Cletchach overlooking Linfech. In revenge for King Cormac MacArt's leaning towards Christianity, the Druids let loose Shivras against him, who choked him with the bone of a salmon while he was eating his dinner. By the way, that happened pretty much in almost the same location as Fionn Finn had eaten the salmon of knowledge by the Boyne. Fascinating stuff, I think you'll agree. And certain persons, being jealous of a beautiful girl named Aige, Aige, set Shivras on her, who transformed her into a fawn. The leprechaun, as we now have him, is a little fellow whose occupation is making shoes for the F words. And on moonlight nights, you can sometimes hear the tapping of his little hammer from where he sits, working in some lonely nook among bushes. If you can catch him and keep your gaze fixed on him, he will tell you, after some threatening, where to find a crock of gold. But if you take your eyes off him for an instant, he is gone. The leprechauns are an ancient race in Ireland, for we find them mentioned in some of our oldest tales. The original name was Luchorpawn, from Lu, little, and Chorpawn, a diminutive of corp, a body, a wee little body of Lu. And again, for more about Luchorpawn or Luchromán, it's in Return to Segish. I think you'll enjoy that bit, actually. In fact, I know you will. A passage in the Book of the Dun Cow, inserted, of course, by the Christian redactor, informs us that they were descended from Ham, the son of Noah. It is from him Ham descended Lucropawns and Fomorians and Goatheads and every other ill-shaped sort of men. Unquote. They could do mischief to mortals, such as withering the corn, setting fire to houses, snipping the hair of women's heads clean off, and so forth, but were not prone to inflict evil, except under provocation. From the beginning, as their name implies, they were of diminutive size. For example, as they are presented to us in the ancient tale of the death of Fergus MacLeige, their stature might be about 6 inches. In the same tale, the king of the leprechauns was taken captive by Fergus and ransomed himself by giving him a pair of magic shoes which enabled him to go under the water whenever and for as long as he pleased. Just as at the present day, a leprechaun, when you catch him, which is the difficulty, will give you heaps of money for letting him go. No doubt, the episode of the ransom by the magic shoes in the old story is the original version of the present superstition that the leprechaun is the F-word's shoemaker. The leprechauns of this particular story live in a beautiful country under Loch Rory, now Dundrum Bay, off the coast of County Down. In modern times, the puka has come to the front as a leading Irish goblin, but I fear he is not native Irish, as I do not find him mentioned in any ancient Irish documents. He appears to have been an immigrant F-word, brought hither by the Danish settlers. For we find in the Old Norse language the word puki, meaning an imp, which is no doubt the origin of our puka. That's P-U-F-A-C-A, anglicised as P-O-O-K-A, and of the English puck. But like the Anglo-Norman settlers, he had not long lived in this country till he became more Irish than the Irish themselves. For an account of his shape, character, and exploits, etc., go to the origin and history of names of places. We've done episodes about those. When the Milesians landed in Ireland, we're not quite so much on Tuatha Dé Danann deities here now as sort of offshoots of the whole thing. When the Milesians landed in Ireland, they were encountered by mysterious sights and sounds wherever they went, through the subtle spells of the Dé Dananns. As they climbed over the mountains of Kerry, half-formed spectres flitted dimly before their eyes. For Banba, the queen of one of the three Dé Danann princes who ruled the land, sent a swarm of Maishi, or phantoms, which froze the blood of the invaders with terror. And the mountain range of Sliabh Mish near Tralee still retains the name of those apparitions. O'Cleary's glossary explains Meshi as meaning Shiavra or phantom forms, such as might be spectral bodies that arise from the ground. The Dé Dananns could also command the services of whole crowds of Orthrachta, malignant sprites, and Guidjavine, which last name, according to Cormac's glossary, was applied to spectres and F-word queens. Soraka says, I'm waiting for a C word, and Neil points out that I just used a P word. Anne McCallum, the immigrant F word, I was just about to say, no doubt there'll be somebody somewhere on a thread complaining about those immigrant F words coming over here and stealing our jobs. The puka stealing the jobs of the, in a racist rant. Anyway, I shouldn't be making fun because it was very serious earlier on. Chungus Khan thinks this is very cool. The early biographers of the Irish saints fully believed that in the pagan times Ireland was infested by numberless demons and evil spirits, just as they believed in the necromantic powers of the Druids, which we can hardly wonder at, seeing that the belief in witches and witchcraft was universal all over Europe down to a late period. Of those evil beings and of the early Christian notions regarding them, Jocelyn, a monk of Furness in Lancashire, who wrote a life of St. Patrick in the 12th century, gives a very vivid and highly coloured picture. He tells us that before the time of St. Patrick, Ireland was troubled with a threefold plague of reptiles, demons, and magicians. As for reptiles, and the following paragraph is in quotes, these venomous and monstrous creatures used to rise out of the earth and sea, and so prevailed over the whole island, that they wounded both men and animals with their deadly stings. Looks like the women escaped. Often slew them with their cruel bitings, not seldom rent and devoured their members. Carry on. The demons used to show themselves unto their worshippers in visible forms. They often attacked the people, inflicting much hurt, and only ceased from their baleful doings when they were appeased by foul, heathenish prayers and offerings. Everything is foul and heathenish and dark when it's described from the point of view of a Christian scribe, isn't it? Anyway, we'll say nothing about devouring their members. And thus they were seen flying in the air and walking on the earth, loathsome and horrible to behold, in such multitudes that it seemed as if the whole island were too small to give them standing and flying room. Whence Ireland was deemed the special home of demons. And lastly, the magicians, evildoers, and soothsayers abounded beyond what history records on any other country on the face of the earth. Unquote. Oh God, that was hard reading, wasn't it? So this is Jocelyn, writing the story of St. Patrick, talking about the fact that Ireland was so packed with demons there was hardly space for them. How ridiculous. Oh, yes, Christianity, isn't it great for colouring the whole scene? What with Dé Danann gods, with war gods and goddesses, apparitions, demons, sprites of the valley, ordinary ghosts, spectres and goblins, F-words, I nearly said it, of various kinds, shivras, leprechauns, banshees, and so forth, there appears to have been quite as numerous a population belonging to the spiritual world as of human beings. And some things, my friends, haven't changed. In those old pagan days, Ireland was an eerie place to live in, and it was high time for St. Patrick to come. Obviously, P.W. Joyce was a fairly devout Catholic, wasn't he? It has to be said, because I would, I don't. There's not much in the way of eerie, evil darkness to be seen in the mythology, unless you're looking from a particular slant. And it seems that Joyce was certainly slanted against what he termed paganism, and slanted very much in favour of the religion that he practiced, which was obviously Catholicism or some branch of Christianity. Kerem was away. What have I missed? Well, how long were you away for? Good to see you, Kerem. Always a pleasure. Very good friend of Mythical Ireland for many years. Well, I'm glad to say, Bethany, the one perspective that I suppose that is offered from a Christian perspective is it is shaded, of course. It is tainted. It is tinted, sometimes with dark glasses. And look, we're able to look at things now, I suppose, from a non-religious perspective, sometimes a non-spiritual perspective. And that's refreshing because it gives us a new view. And it gives us a new view of how much, I suppose, the wool has perhaps been pulled over the eyes of the people with regards to their old beliefs, which a lot of people held into the modern era. Belief in the F words and in the Dé Dananns, etc., etc. Claire Quinn, I don't think you're wrong there. Joyce was probably scared he was going to lose his proverbials. Yeah, be careful, be careful. I mean, if you say it is one thing, but if you write it, of course, it can be brought back and shown to you. You wrote this, you can't deny it, Yes, it is refreshing. We have a refreshing perspective on things. I hope you agree. Maybe a devout Catholic, but with lots of humour. Yes, indeed. As a writer, he certainly has humour, and his work is very valuable. You see, this is the thing about some of the modern pagan community, and I'm just saying the pagans because they're the ones I've encountered the most, and I've many friends who are pagans, and I have the greatest respect for them. But some of the modern pagans don't like the fact that Christian monks saved a lot of Irish mythology from, from destruction, because they equate the Church of the Middle Ages with the sins of the church, as it were, in the 20th century, and I don't think that's. I think that's comparing apples with oranges, to be honest with you. Plus the fact that, don't forget, in the first millennium AD, a lot of the Fili, the poets, and the Druids were sort of teetering between the old beliefs and the new beliefs. And many of those, I think this is worthy of an episode in itself, and I've seen plenty of healthy and some unhealthy discussion about it online. I think sometimes you forget that it's not entirely, the perspective doesn't entirely color or taint the material. What it does is it muddies the waters. That perspective of Christianity trying to demonize what may have been deified before Christianity, and at the same time trying to castigate or otherwise categorize rites and rituals and beliefs of the peasantry in Christian times that had clearly come from pre-Christian times. But some of those, of course, ended up being incorporated into the early Christian church. But that's for another night, I think. Any comments or questions that I've missed? Let me take a quick scroll through on the community group as well as here. Gods, demons, spirits. So many different people affirming the same stories using different verbiage. Awesome. Yes, indeed. Kathy May, enjoyed today. Glad we're all back. Have a wonderful week, all. Yes. Don't forget that, and that's very true, Anne Garrity Smith. And again, this has been, a few people have left the Mythical Ireland community as a result of things that I've said about Christian monks saving the mythology, because they've been so insulted by it. But it's a fact, and it's a fact borne out. by the documents themselves. The fact that they exist, but it's more complex than that. It's not just the monks. It's the fact that their sponsors, as it were usually members of the tribes, and the tribes were closely aligned with the church. And so church and politics became intermingled even at that stage. But yeah, it's true. At the end of the day, like them or lump them, the Christians did a lot of good in this country. Just in the 20th century, they seemed to go into complete. Anyway, don't even go there. We're still seeing the results of that. Melanie Lynn, I didn't even know you were in the house, Melanie. Good to see you. Hope you're in good form. And glad that you enjoyed yourself. Also, Peter Woods is in the house. Why not have some of the stories? Would not have some of the stories without the early scribes. Exactly, Peter. Exactly. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the inspiration. Well, it's again, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, as I always do with this stuff. Where would we be but for the scholars of the past? In fact, I dedicate the monograph to the scholars whose work, a huge amount of that library is as the result of the diligent work of scholars of the past who translated the texts and who made sometimes academic translations and sometimes popular translations. It is to them that we owe a great debt of gratitude, in the same way as we owe a debt of gratitude to those very same Christian scribes about whom we speak from the Middle Ages, who saved a lot of our mythology by writing it down. Yes, they also transformed it. And yes, as I say, they muddied the waters. But one has only to try to remove the dim glasses that shade us from the truth, and it is possible to peer deeper into things. Mythology and religion, says one commenter, end up in an uncomfortable symbiotic relationship. I enjoy trying to figure it out. Well, you see, I think the fact is that mythology and religion are so closely intertwined because certainly I think the early religions or early spiritual beliefs um, were informed by dreams and visions as much as the mythology was. I think they sort of both ultimately stem from a similar source. And Brendan, well said. Everybody here has an open mind. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here. History is for everyone. Absolutely, an open mind really needs a closed fist. Leon, a lot still undiscovered, says the full Irish. That's Gary, isn't it? Gary, yes. And maybe one day the future generations will understand their wisdom. A lot still undiscovered. Yeah, I wonder to what extent there are manuscripts that haven't been transcribed and translated. Thank you, Mariana. Very glad that you enjoyed yourself. Just to say that anybody who had pre-ordered a copy of Mythical Ireland Monograph #1, again, just to give it a plug, all of those copies went out in today's post. So if you ordered up until today, all your copies are out in today's post. It arrived earlier than expected. It went to print last Wednesday morning, and the copies arrived on Friday morning. There was a 2-day turnaround on it, which was fabulous. And as of this moment, all orders of Return to Segish are also up to date. So thank you. We do try to post within 24 hours of receiving an order. If that's not possible, 48 hours. And of course, if it's the weekend. Thanks to all for the laughs and the knowledge and omitting the Fs, of course. You're welcome, Joe. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Is that Cazador? Maybe you might send me an email about that, will you? That sounds interesting, and I'd love to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Laura says, I'll see you on Patreon. Brilliant stuff, Laura. Thank you for your support. See you over there. And next week, as I said at the outset, we are back to Live Irish Myths in conversation. Our guest is Mike Bailey. I think Mike might be semi-retired at this stage. I think he might be Professor Emeritus. But Mike is a very well-known dendrochronologist who's been studying the tree ring record in the bog oaks of Ireland, going back at least 5,000 years, and will be a fascinating guest with lots to tell us. looking forward to that. Tomorrow morning, watch out. Pardon me. Tomorrow morning, watch out for the Zoom registration link. That event will be held on Zoom. We'll be back, of course, with the regular series. I'm glad you've been enjoying it before too long. Edina Sparks says, "Be safe, everyone." Thank you, Anthony. Thank you indeed, and to Claire and to Mandy. We'll see you all very soon. In the meantime, I've got my old bottle of hand gel. I'm still sanitizing my hands. I'm still coughing and sneezing into the crook of my elbow. I'm still wearing a mask when I'm around other people. And we're still under fairly severe restrictions here. So keep yourselves safe. And if you're the age or you're in the right group of people in terms of being vaccinated, good luck to you and all the best. And I hope that you're able to get back to some sort of normality soon. When you do, please don't leave Mythical Ireland behind. Keep watching, and I intend to keep going with it as long as I'm able to. In the meantime, Slán go fóil, Nadina go léir ar fud an dawan, Macarja go léir as dreichad áha as glán na bóine, as conda na lú. Slán go fóil, banachtaí, Ikawa. If it's night time, Kolosov, sound sleep, but only if you're going to sleep. If you're in America and it's only the early afternoon, and especially if you're driving, definitely don't fall asleep. And most importantly of all, Toga Bugay. Take it easy. Till next time, I'm Anthony Murphy of Mythical Ireland. It's been my wonderful pleasure to have you all in the library this evening. Cheerio.